Welcome to Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf. Today our special guest is Greg Cieply, local author, and with his first book, Impromptu You, Learn Impromptu Speaking. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What motivated you to write this book?
Well, what really motivated me more than anything wasn't a personal project. What I really wanted to do was to help other people learn some of the things that I've already learned through my many years of being a Toastmaster, which you and I are both Toastmasters. Yes. And I found in the process of book publishing in the last 20 years has changed considerably. It used to be you would need to find a publisher, they would put it all together, and now with Amazon, you're actually able to self-publish and put these books together. And so having all this knowledge, I thought to myself, I'd love to be able to share some of the things that I've learned and implemented, especially when it comes to impromptu speaking, with other people. And what an easy way and what a very a possible way to share that information in a simple fashion by creating a book like this and letting people absorb that knowledge. So I sat down and took some of these ideas that I had and put them together, and there you have it.
I like this format. It's very short. Yeah. I think I read a manuscript before it was published.
You did.
So it was very exciting to be part of your journey.
Yes.
And tell us, about your journey, how Toastmaster. What is Toastmaster?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with it, for anybody that's watching, if you're not familiar, the name is kind of a misnomer. It's not about toast. It's not about cooking anything. It's about public speaking. And it's actually really not even about making toast. But the founder of the program decided that there was a need amongst young men, especially at the time, to become better public speakers, to communicate better, and to become better leaders. So he started a program and he ultimately called it Toastmasters, which exists today. And it's technically about public speaking as well as leadership, right? And so the Toastmaster part of it, the public speaking part of it that attracted me was the ability to just get up in front of people and communicate. And I think that even today, same as it was 100 years ago, there's still a strong need for people to be able to communicate. And it's ironic that so many people, it's such a huge fear for so many people to get up in front of others and speak. And I was just intrigued by that element of my own nature, that I was afraid of doing that, but I felt compelled to do it at the same time. Like I don't want to do it, but I want to do it. Yes. And throughout college, which anybody is listening, in high school, even in grade school, you probably were confronted with something like that. And I thought, how do I get over this? How do I, how am I able to communicate in a fashion that that gets rid of that fear? So Toastmasters,
connects people. I think that's what attracted both of us to, Toastmasters and learning from seeing the examples, learning from seeing people being unsuccessful and helping each other getting there.
Yes.
And so being a Toastmaster, you have learned so many skills. So this is how it manifests in this book. But how did you get down to this, I guess, about 24 tips or 24 ideas? Was it hard to get it down to 24, or was it hard to get to 24?
I would say it would be a combination of the two. Initially, I think I had about 12 or 13 on there. I read an article about impromptu speaking. It was very brief. It was like one page, and it just had some one-liners on there, and it got me thinking. I thought, there's so many more things that I've encountered in Toastmasters that help with impromptu speaking. And you might ask, why impromptu speaking? What I found is that seems to be the thing that most people are the most afraid of when it comes to public speaking. It's not so much getting up and reciting something. I mean, I think most people probably can recite a prepared speech. It's not great, but they can hold on to the lectern and just read it like that. You see politicians do that a lot. But when you have to actually speak off the cuff in front of other people, it can be very, very debilitating for people ahead of time. And so I thought, there's got to be a way that we can prepare people to look like they're prepared. And the article just sparked an idea in my head. How about I put something together and let people learn how to do that?
Well, when people are in this situation, in an interview, when you are asked something, their mind is going everywhere.
Yes.
So they don't know how to, let's say, organize that. And I think, let's say, your goal, preparing for impromptu speaking, it's a bit of an oxymoron.
Right.
So you're saying it's possible, right? It's possible to prepare for Can you share some tips?
Yes. Yeah, and that's the irony of it all, right? When you
Yes.
think about it, people feel like they are afraid because they don't know what they're going to say. And then when they see somebody that actually performs well, they think, wow, that guy, he's really good. And the reality of it is, yeah, they're good. There's an element of comfortableness that you have and maybe a stage presence that you have. But usually behind a lot of those people who've done it before, they've learned some of these tips. It was sort of a mystery. I was trying to figure out how is that person able to be able to speak so eloquently and to sound like they're prepared ahead of time. And as I delved into it with that article and a bit more work, I realized that there were maybe 5 or 10 different things that really, really set you apart from other people and can also remove some of that adrenaline that pops into your head when somebody asks you a question. And it's not just with public speaking, right?
Right, right.
Interviews like this,
Yes.
Job interviews,
Oh,
right?
excellent, yeah.
Negotiations, things like that.
Exactly.
You need to kind of calm that adrenaline down when you're in court or you're giving a testimony or something, and somebody asks you a question. You don't know what to say, right? And I'm not suggesting that you prepare for that, but you definitely have to find ways to lower that adrenaline rush that you get right away, and it really only takes like a couple seconds. And then your mind starts thinking clearly again, because the reality, Yvonne, think about it. We're having a conversation right now, and most people that struggle with public speaking, they think, I could never do that. But it's just a conversation. Why is it difficult? Because of that adrenaline rush that they get right away. That's what they remember. As opposed to saying, well, I can talk to my friends. I can be funny with my friends. I can be charming with my friends. And all of us have done that. But we don't know that there are techniques to help you to do that.
So when you were writing this book, did you work with a writers group? Some way to get feedback of how to organize this book?
Yes. I wouldn't say it was a formal group. I've been part of a writers group before, but was really to write fiction and to be upfront about it. I've written a bunch of fiction. I've never completed any of it, so there's probably 10 or 15 books on my
more
Google.
coming, I guess.
Yeah, on my Google Drive that have never been finished. But I worked with a few authors who had done something similar to this in different areas, and they helped me put something together, sort of edit and give me an idea on how this could be more useful for people. So it wasn't like it just popped out of my head and I put it together. And I think it's a collaboration with other people who've done it before and been there. So
yes, and I like how short it is. And did you meant it to be like that? You just flip through and just pick one a day.
Yeah, I mean,
to ponder about.
To me, I felt like this is, as I started off in the beginning saying, is like this is really an educational tool rather than like a book I'm trying to sell commercially. What I wanted it to be was somebody could take this and say, okay, I'm really struggling with this particular element, whether I'm presenting at work, whether I'm in a job interview, or whether I have to be on the spot in a meeting or a church or in a municipal situation. How can I get better at that? And this gives them a very brief opportunity to just kind of look at, maybe pick 1 or 2 things a day and just practice them. There's 24 of them. Practice one of them. And you'll see that like the next time that happens for you, like, wow, I sounded really good. And I think that way it just preps you and you have a much better opportunity to look polished when you are asked to speak off the cuff.
Oh, yes, I think so. It shows.
Yeah.
I think I remember when we used to record messages on a voicemail.
Yes.
Learning to sound prepared.
Yes.
Sound like you can give your phone number out, right, with a clarity.
Yes.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
It could be done.
Yeah.
And so now what have you learned about yourself through this process, through writing this book?
Well, one of the things that I learned was I think I approached it with like, here's the ideas that I have. I'm just going to put them out there and see what happens. But then I talked to a couple people who had done it already, and they're like, no, you need to have like a format. And here's some of the things that are successful when you put this together. And as I realized that, as well as Toastmasters, just being in part of Toastmasters all this time, the personal feedback that you get and then applying it is very important, because I think a lot of people, myself included, I think I may be right, I think I'm right about this, and I get defensive sometimes, or I used to get defensive when people would tell me, you're doing that wrong, or maybe you need to do it this way. And the ability to accept feedback and apply it is really important. And so I learned that through this process, through people that have helped me edit the book, just to say, hey, this would be better, this might be better, this might be a different way to say it. You might want to consider this. It's like, that clicked, as well as what we do in Toastmasters is you give a speech and you get feedback on it, and you implement that feedback. Well, it's the same thing with the book, and it's been very, very helpful for me to do that. Something that I didn't do. I wrote a book before, but it's not really a book. It's more like a guide to something, and I didn't do it with that. And this process would have been helpful had I implemented that and asked other people to help me.
So it could be a humbling experience.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and then about how to, right? Even though that book didn't come out, maybe the how-to part is what drove the second one to be better. Is there any tips you have on creating a how-to book?
Yeah, I think just if you've ever considered being an author before, and obviously that's the point of this interview and who you interview, it takes an element of focus and concentration, as well as a mission. I've always found that, like, if I want to be successful at something, I have to have some end goal to it, and that will drive me throughout the course of the process. Because to me, the process is the destination, not the end goal. So the process of writing the book helped to shape my understanding of how to be a better impromptu speaker. The book represents your ability to see what I went through in that process, and you can be the beneficiary of it, but you still need to engage in that process, and that's something that I didn't really think about beforehand. And now I would say if you're going to do something like that, trust the fact that you will become a better person and the process will be beneficial for you, but you have to have some end goal. And obviously with the book, it's getting it published or publishing it yourself. But to me, that was the more important part, rather than just having the final product. Obviously, the goal is to have the final product, but getting there was the important thing for me. And looking back on it, it's like I would spend multiple nights and weekends just going through this and revising this and trying to come up with different ideas. And that really sticks with me now as an important part of things.
Do you see another book coming out of what you...
I have thought about it, yes. I have thought about adding different elements to it, maybe taking it in a different path. There's some parts of this that I talked about that there's an adjunct to it. So for instance, one of the things that we do in Toastmasters a lot is gestures and body language.
Yes.
Body language is an important part of communication, but it's not necessarily something that you would consider essential for impromptu speaking, because you're not always in person, right? And even if you are, even though they say that body language is a large percentage of the communication, you still need something to work on. So I think gestures and things like that, and just the makeup of the speech itself, to me, is something that I'd like to explore, and I would probably, I've had some ideas about that. Also, that I kind of delve into humor from time to time, so I've thought about adding a humor element to it, maybe a different book on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen you present your book at a workshop.
Yeah.
So how do you use this in a workshop?
Yeah, so I try to be interactive, and in the book I actually talk about how to engage the audience, and that helps you to be impromptu, right? Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have an element of something that I want to talk to about somebody. And then, for instance, in the workshop you were in, I say, one of the things that we can work on is coming up with a quote. So I want everybody at the start of this thing, think of a quote. You can use your phones, whatever. We're not going to ask you to repeat it right now, but I'm going to ask you later on. And I want you to think of that quote that you like and that you found useful and memorable for you. And then we're going to implement it later on when we do something else. And now, so I've done two things. I've engaged people. So now they're part of the process. They own some of it. And I've helped them to understand and to learn on their own, which to me is like, that benefits me. I feel like
that's a very high quality communication. When you engage them and they give you feedback.
Yes.
And speaking of that, what are some readers' feedback that you received?
Most of the time, the people that have given me feedback on it say, I've tried this, I've tried that. Even in that seminar, people have come up to me afterwards and said, I really tried this, thank you, because it made a big difference. You don't notice right away. When you read something, it's great to read it, but you really need to implement it. The people that have implemented it, right?
That's the hard part.
And the people that have implemented it have come back to me and said, oh, that was really good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'd forgotten about that. And I tried it in a meeting that I had, and it really worked really well. So
I think your book, it definitely points to that mental training.
Yes.
If you just pick, let's say, 5 out of 24, you will reduce that adrenaline because your brain
Yes.
will be focused on
Yes.
something instead of everywhere.
Right.
Because that's what happens in the impromptu situation. And so, have you been on a, let's say, tour or marketing for your book? Do you have any marketing plans for this book?
That's an awkward silence. That's part of the book. And it was a little awkward, wasn't it? Right? And that's something that you can implement, because I can tell you that I have not been marketing the book simply because I initially started to put it together just as a tool to help people.
Yes.
And when we did that seminar not too long ago, I thought, I probably should market it more. I should get out there and as a way to help people learn, teach some of these techniques. So
It's
I
so
really
practical. That's
yeah.
what I like about your book.
Yes,
right?
exactly. They're very practical, and so rather than it just being something for somebody to read, I wanted to I really enjoy getting out there and helping people to implement that. And so yes, implementing things like the silent response.
So what kind of what advice would you give to someone who's looking at writing a how-to, a nonfiction like this? Like incubation time, is that important? Is that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that you need to consider. One of them is, like I said, have some type of mission at the end. You need to be intentional about this. Like, what is it you're trying to do? For my goal, I was trying to teach people and give them knowledge and understanding. In a nonfiction book like that, you can do it with novels too, but you need to give them the ability. You need to have some mission internally that you want to achieve, and then that sort of feeds on itself, and then you need to have the discipline behind it. And that mission will drive you, I believe. It drove me because I realized that I wanted to get this out there. I wanted to be disciplined about it, and it's essential. Like you can't, there's no way around it. Like you literally have to just I wouldn't say every waking moment, but when you have free time, it's not like, hey, I'm going to watch TV or I'm going to scroll social media. You got to be writing. You got to spend time doing that, and you'll find the benefit from it, but definitely you need to make the time for it.
Being intentional with
Yes.
creativity. I mean, even creativity, you think it just comes
Right.
in spurts, but then
No.
you have to spend the time.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard because sometimes you just don't feel creative. It's like, I don't know what to say. It's like, well, I got to come up with something.
How about the cover? Did you have anything to do with this?
I had an idea for what I wanted on there, and I kind of sketched something together, and I had a freelancer just put it together for me, and they took care of that. So
I like how bold and encouraging.
yeah,
Because this has to be very clear, your direction.
I would say this, like you asked the question before, any tips that you would give people? I think people don't realize how easy it is to publish something like that. I mean, literally, I think that the cover might have cost me $20 or $30 or something like that, and you just get the artwork. And putting it together, there are editors out there that will do it for you for a reasonable price. And for me, again, this is a labor of love. This isn't something that I was looking to like commercially make viable, although you can. You're probably going to spend, you might break even on it. I'm probably broke even
Most
on
of
this.
our
Right.
Most
But-
of our guests are not here to
Right.
make some money, financial gain.
Right.
They enjoy what they do.
Yeah, and so that, again, that's the benefit for it. Like, let's say you wanted to write a memoir about your life. Yeah, I think that would be fun. I'd love to. It's going to cost you some money to do it, but
Yeah, but it's
worth it.
It's a good birthday gift, let's say. Compared
Exactly.
to everything else we get, right?
Yes.
The silly, meaningless things.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so what connects you to Glenview?
Well, Toastmasters. So
we have a club.
that's right, North Suburban Toastmasters, 612.
They
Right.
meet at Glenview Public
They
Library.
meet at Glenview Public Library, and known part of that group in the past. I think one of the other members from a group many, many years ago told me that he was a member of that group. This is going back in probably the 80s or 90s, and just, yeah, it's been around for a long time.
And it's
so.
going strong.
And going strong, right, yeah.
Almost as good as our club. Right?
Yeah.
Well, any last minute quotes you have for our audience?
Well, one of the other things in the book, one of the things that I kind of go back to all the time is using quotes. And I would, just as a tip for anybody that wants to implement this right away: start collecting quotes that you hear or that you find interesting, either or. Put them in your phone, put them in the note part of your phone, and you'll be surprised how, well, I guess I should go back. One of the other impetuses that caused me to put something like this together was I realized in the initial part of table topics, when you do impromptu speaking in a meeting, that the easiest way to come up with something is just to relay a story about something that's happened to you, whether it was yesterday on the way to the meeting or on a vacation or something. And what ultimately happens is your mind starts to go back. After they've asked the question, you're telling your story, and your mind's going to come up with an answer to the question while you're there. And this quote makes it even easier, because now you know the quote. It's like one of the quotes I would use all the time was, you make a living by what you get, and you make a life by what you give.
Yes.
Now, just by saying that, it opens up a whole plethora of things that I can think about. Like, what do I want to talk about now?
That will anchor your stories.
I've anchored the story.
Yeah.
Now I can talk about my family, I could talk about my job, but they all relate to that thing, and it's so easy. It's just a quote that I've remembered, and I've used it multiple times. People would, anybody that knows me in Toastmasters knows me that I use that quote a lot, and it's motivated me to do a lot of different things. To write this book, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. So using quotes is a very simple, easy, and effective way to look like you know what you're talking about when it comes to impromptu speaking, whatever the question is. If you asked me about quantum physics and I threw that quote out there, I don't really know much about quantum physics. No. But if I threw that out there first and then started rambling about quantum physics, you might be like, okay, well, I didn't start out by going, quantum, it makes it look polished. So
it looks like you give some substance to your audience.
Yes.
I think the quote that I like from you is always, when you help someone else, you always end up helping yourself.
Exactly. Very, very good quote. Yes, very good quote.
Well, Greg, you mentioned the importance of stories. Tell us, how do you craft a story? Do you need a setting? What do you do when you have this story in your head and it's just kind of come in on all directions? You don't know how to organize it.
Right, yeah. And I'll break it down even smaller than that. Another example of how this book came about was the idea that stories are generally the way we communicate ideas as human beings. And I realized that. And I also realized that I thought I don't have a lot of stories in my own life. And most people probably think they don't. And I started a story bank. I saw an article somewhere that talked about us having a story bank, and I started putting them together, and I realized, oh my God, I have so many. Some of them are funny, some of them are heartfelt, some of them are sad. And that also is a great way to initialize a conversation when it's impromptu. Tell the story about the time that I was preparing for a marathon. I was running down a highway, and I thought a car pulled over, and I thought it was a cop, and he was going to yell at me and tell me that I couldn't be running on this rural highway in southern Illinois. And it was just some guy that pulled up, and he said, "Hey, you look like you need a glass of water," and he gave me a bottle of water. I'm like, okay, thank you. You know what I mean? And we all have stories like that. And just think, if when you are asked a question that you're not sure how to answer, most of them you can find a way to work into the answer to your question. Like if you ask me about the weather, and I could start it with that story and then say, yeah, and it was a really hot day, and I was so glad that guy gave me a bottle of water. So it's so easy.
People could be a story of gratitude.
Anything, right? And you have them in you, but you don't. That was the one thing that really struck me. It's like, I didn't realize I had no stories. I had tons of them. We all do.
And
so
you have to start collecting.
You do. Just have to start collecting them.
It's called a story bank.
Story bank, yeah.
Do you organize it by?
Yes.
Yes. See, how do you organize it? That would be
by topic.
By topic. Yeah. By emotion.
By emotion, right?
By emotion, yeah. And that's a good place to start. I think there would probably open up so many stories or book ideas. Well, it's a pleasure having you here, Greg. I hope you come back with another book.
I would love to.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.